Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got
Another one!
Oladipo!
Another one! Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Galloway finds Rob Finnessy, who fires the three, and
he hit it!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Well, welcome aboard to another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here on this beautiful February or March. We're in March. I forgot we're already in March. March 6th. Of course, that means tournament. From high atop the 18th fairway here at the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Don't forget, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, powered by Andy Moore Honda. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com for the best in new and used vehicles. And also Endeavor Hospitality, their wealth of family of restaurants in and around the Bloomington area. Great places like BB's Market, your butcher, baker, no matter where you live, with the greatest of in-house made products. And or you can pick up great things like this. This is Goteen. Goteen, a little Goteen snack that I'm going to have this morning for breakfast. For those on the go, when you need a little hit of protein, boom. That's going to be my breakfast today, I promise you. At it, with us, of course, as usual, Dustin Schutte. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. We're in full March. It's win or go home time, so I'm fired up.
It is. On the program today, Don Fischer will join us, of course, the voice of the Indiana Hoosiers. Dustin Dopirak will join us as well. Plenty to talk about as the Big Ten tournament is upon us. The Big Ten season has concluded for, well, all the seasons have concluded in college basketball. Purdue, your regular season champion, of course, as this, the Big Ten, in Big Ten fashion, baby, goes right down to the last day when teams had opportunities and let them slip away. And it looked like Indiana was going to be one of those. But yesterday we saw who all lost yesterday. Holy cow.
Half the conference.
Who didn't lose yesterday? Everybody that was going for a double bye seemed to have lost.
Yep.
Northwestern was the only team that did not. Not only did they not, didn't they win at Rutgers?
They won at Rutgers. And they could have, what was crazy was they had the opportunity, if they won, or when they did win, so they locked up the number 2 seed. Had they lost, they would have been the number 9 seed. There was no in between. So this was as close to the quote, if you ain't first, you're last, as you'll ever get in real life. I mean, it was insane.
You ain't first, you're, little Ricky Bobby.
Exactly.
Well, it's the same with Indiana. Indiana was the same deal. If they lose, they drop to the bottom.
Right.
It was crazy, but it shook out to where Indiana does have the number 3 seed, which I don't know if you'd rather have had the 2 seed or the 3 seed. I think I would have rather have had. I don't know.
This might be a year in which it really doesn't matter at all, because you look at this. You look at the seed lines. Okay, so I'm just going to look at the top 4.
Would you rather play Maryland or Illinois?
Look, here's the thing. Illinois is about as hot as you could possibly get when they're playing well. So they're a tough team. They're a tough team.
You can say that about any team when they're playing well.
Penn State has overcome deficits recently to Northwestern on the road. And they won, and they beat Maryland at home. Nebraska's won 6 out of their last 8. Maryland is bad away from the Xfinity Center. You look up, Michigan State's going to have to play probably Iowa. That's not an easy game. Purdue's going to have to play Rutgers or Michigan. They lost to Rutgers and they had a dogfight against Michigan. Like, there is no – I think a lot of times you look at it and you're like, yeah, this looks like a favorable draw. I don't think there's a favorable draw this year. And you just don't have to play till Friday.
There shouldn't be after the season that we've had. I mean, after what we just talked about yesterday, my God, we go to the last day waiting for games to see who does what and the upsets. It was great. But it was great. I mean, that's how it should be, man. That
makes it exciting.
Oh, my God. Everything comes down to the last day. It was incredible. Wow. Oh, Michigan State gets a double bye.
Yeah. How crazy is that?
They were ninth. Michigan State was ninth last Wednesday.
Yep.
They were in ninth place last Wednesday. Now they have a double bye. Michigan State was not a team anybody talked about getting a double bye.
Right.
Because they were in ninth place.
Well, and I mean, look at Michigan. They were in second place. Tied for second earlier in the week, and they get an 8th seed. I mean, I don't know if there's ever been this much fluctuation in the way the seeding has played out as I've ever seen. I can't remember a time that it's ever been this crazy, but it was fantastic because in the final week you had everything at stake except for the 1 seed and then the 13 and 14. I mean, literally everything was at stake. So it made for an exciting final day. And things weren't determined until the final game. I mean, Wisconsin, Minnesota didn't matter, but other than that, every other game had some sort of impact.
Indiana has the absolute longest time to rest of anybody in the conference.
Yep.
Because they will not play their first game until Thursday night around 9:30. I'm not kidding.
I know you are. I know you're not, but it's that would be the luck of Indiana to play the latest game possible on Friday.
Thursday night at approximately 9:30. That's
Friday
when
night.
that game. Yes, Friday night at approximately 9:30 is when that game will take place. That's the United Center in Chicago, which will be there, of course, for you. Yeah. We'll see how that shakes out. And then you got everything else going on, man. The Big 12. Texas Tech coach is probably going to get fired. But the Texas Tech tournament, that's going to be a bloodbath.
Big 12,
Or Big 12, rather. I'm sorry. My gosh. Yeah, think about that. On the second day, let's see. Baylor, Kansas, Texas, Kansas State, all playing.
It'll be great. I mean, that's gonna be just like the Big Ten tournament. It's gonna be great from start to finish, I think.
Yeah, well, it should be because that's another.
I mean, you got
go ahead.
You got a rivalry game on Wednesday. I mean, I know they're not great teams, but Oklahoma State plays Oklahoma on that first day on Wednesday. So even though it's not a great game, there's a rivalry there to start you off. So it'll be a fun tournament.
The overall bracket right now, which I say that this doesn't mean a lot, which is not true. It does. I don't know how much it'll move, how much say Indiana would move, because they've held tight at that 4 spot. The 4 line for a while, and I'm trying to figure out. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, right now this is Mike DeCourcy's brackets. He has Indiana as the number 2 4 seed.
Okay.
So that gives them a little room. My point being, they might be able to withstand I think that they can withstand a loss in the Big Ten tournament.
Oh, yes.
And not lose their 4 seed spot.
I would guess they're probably locked into that 4 seed. Would be my guess at this point.
I'm agreeing with you. If now that's Mike DeCourcy's.
I think I want to say that Indiana could potentially get up to a 3 seed if they won the Big Ten tournament.
No,
but I don't think that's the case.
I
don't think that's going to be the case.
First of all, you've got the teams in front of them. Who's going to drop?
Right. And would they? And you're talking about them having to suffer. I mean, they would all have to lose day one of their conference tournament or what? I don't even know what the 3 seeds are at this point right now, but those teams would all come
and
in.
You know what? And it also means that the teams in front of them on the 4 seed line,
right,
would have to fail because everybody moves up if there's room to move up. I think they remain a 4 seed. I think they go in a 4 seed. More importantly, where do they end up? And with that 4 seed, the reason I think that is valuable is because I think that there's a great possibility they could end up going through Orlando and Louisville.
They could.
And that would be great.
Sublime.
For me, great for fans, I think, to follow.
Especially
they would kill. Louisville would be just sold out.
Right. Yeah, there would be no problem getting fans to Louisville. That's for sure.
Well, that's the NCAA finally woke up after years of watching games with no fans in them.
Mm-hmm.
It always boggled my mind. Here are NCAA tournament games. I don't care who it was. It could have been Duke playing, and there was nobody in the stands because there's an 11 o'clock game out at San Francisco somewhere that nobody cared about. It was ridiculous. Well, they finally got smart and started, all right, well, maybe we need to keep teams closer to home. Yeah. Hey, how'd that work out for you?
Seen a lot of more attendance figures.
Oh, absolutely. So it's just going to be, next, where do they end up? Of course, we've got to play this Big Ten tournament to get that figured out. But like I said, I think that need to get one pulled up, and I'll do that in the break. I'll pull one up. But what a great win for Indiana yesterday as they get a win over Michigan, which that, man, was not easy. As Indiana, they started so strong. For the first 16 minutes of that game, they smothered Michigan defensively. And I'm like, wow, impressed looking at the numbers. I'm like, and then all of a sudden, right before the half, Michigan makes this run. And I went back. They ended up having a 20, I think it was a 28. Now I'll look at it again while we're in the break before Don comes on. I think it ultimately, over the half, ended up being a 28-5 run.
That is probably true because I know it was
Michigan made and Indiana withstood. I'll tell you what it reminded me of. It reminded me of a couple of years ago when Indiana was at Michigan, goes on a 28-0 run and shocks Michigan a few years ago up there. But I'm like, man, this was very similar, but Indiana able to withstand that. And not only that, they finally get it turned around in the second half. Race Thompson, hopefully we can get his quote pulled up, Joe, but for later. But he was not the leading scorer, but I'm telling you, he was a big part of why Indiana won that game yesterday. We'll talk to Don Fischer about that as he joins us today, of course, on the show. Dustin Dopirak will be along as well.
I just want to say that I felt like that game yesterday was a microcosm of Indiana's entire regular season. Like, it was fitting that that's how that game ended because there's been some really high highs, some really low lows, and then mostly positive, right? They won the game. That's mostly positive. But I mean, just a roller coaster of a game. And now Jim's got a no spill lid.
Have I shown you have you seen it yet?
No, this is brand new to me. Look at that.
Pete. Pete sent this in.
I like it.
How about it?
No spills. You don't have to worry about spills anymore.
No, and I'll tell you, I think I could maybe knock somebody out with it if I had to. Hey, we got lots more coming up. The man, Don Fischer, joins us next to talk about yesterday's game and all that is coming up this week for Indiana. And we'll catch up with the Indiana women's team as well, as they also head into NCAA tournament play coming up soon. They're just waiting for their name to be called. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends from BB's Market. Make sure you go there, stop by. They have the best in-house made products, custom meats, full-size bakery. And you can have lunch, brunch, dinner, whatever you need. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether it's at our place.
You know your microphone's off?
No. Oh.
Good call, Dustin.
I didn't want to say anything during the segment.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Oh, excuse me. I feel like I have to fill the silence here. Trying to go through some of the comments. There's a lot of them this morning. Jim has an adult sippy cup now. Yep. Could Xavier Johnson get a medical red shirt? That's a good question. Someone says Indiana's the most disappointing team based on preseason predictions. I mean, I don't pick to finish first and you still finish third. I think that's considering the injuries that were dealt with throughout this season. I think that's fine. Orlando or Columbus first round, better weather in Orlando, but travel is easier to Columbus. That's a possibility too.
30 seconds.
With an exceptional dining experience. With weekly specials, quick attentive service, Southern Stone Restaurant provides delicious 5-star comfort food with a Southern charm at 2-star prices. Southern Stone Restaurant is part of Endeavor Hospitality Smile Club.
This segment is brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here on this Monday. Glad to be here. Dustin, how was your weekend?
Oh, my weekend was great. I mean, I sat at home on Sunday, watched nothing but college basketball. So that was obviously exciting. Kennesaw State won the A-Sun tournament. So to go along with the regular season title, they win the conference tournament. They are in March Madness for the first time in school history. That's going to be awesome. See where they land. I think Mike DeCourcy had them in as a 15 seed. Maybe they moved up a line because of how they performed in the A-Sun tournament. I don't know. We'll see. So that was cool. Made some bread pudding with a bourbon sauce. That was I don't usually make a lot of sweets. I'm not big on the baking, and I don't eat a lot of sweets because I will gain 50 pounds almost immediately. So that was fun. Yeah, that was that was the excitement of my weekend. Not really a ton going on, but just enough to keep me busy. And Jim's got his microphone muted at the moment. So
How about that?
I wish I had more. I wish I had more of an exciting weekend to share, but unfortunately, I did not. Temperature's supposed to drop here in Florida, so that's something.
There's that. I had to take my microphone apart, not apart, but equipment, because for the combine last week, and so.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Forgot
to re-put it back together, and so if it's not sounding as good right now, that's because I'm still putting it back. So,
did you do any more of the cocktail? Did you take any more cocktail shrimp or take any cocktail sauce home with you? That's the big question.
No.
What I've got to remember to do the next time I'm up in Indiana is I need to purchase multiple bottles of it and bring it home, because I think it's in the grocery stores in Indiana. You can't get it anywhere else. I think you can actually order it on Amazon, but I'm a little skeptical of doing that. So next time I'm up there, I've got to get a couple bottles of that cocktail sauce, because it is fantastic, and I will eat the entire jar of it if I purchase it. So I've got to remember to do that. The last couple times I've been back up visiting family and friends, I have not made that purchase. I need to pull the trigger. Set aside a few pennies, pull the trigger on it.
There's a thing called the intranet.
I know, but I'm skeptical of buying it on Amazon. That's the only place I've seen it.
Why?
Why? I don't know. I don't like food product coming to me via. I don't even like doing like the Instacart or whatever, where people drop off your groceries. I'm not even a fan of that.
Oh,
I don't want people touching my food.
You're worse than Brock. You're worse than K-Bro.
Why? What's his problem?
He's got multiple. We could go on for days. All right, so the NCAA tournament, not set, of course. Conference tournaments. Who's not going to make it in? We're waiting for Don Fischer. He'll join us here momentarily. Joe, do you have any clips?
I can get whatever you'd like. Do you want Race's interviews?
Yeah, definitely want Race. Yeah, his special, all of them actually. But Race, the question I asked him, but there's several good things on there. I was surprised at how free Trace Jackson Davis was at the microphone yesterday during Senior Day speeches. It was just, you could barely hear Race Thompson. But Trace Jackson Davis just took that mic and embraced it, and he made Race laugh a lot when he talked about, hey, the last thing Race Thompson or Trace Jackson Davis said, he pointed at each end of the banners, needed one of those, and we need one of those, and drew a big round of applause, and Race gave him the sign to drop the mic, and he was just laughing. They were having a good time. So it's good to see that, because that's the kind of attitude you have to have at this time of the year. fun, free. That means you're stress-free because there's going to be a lot of stress.
Well, we talked about it before the season started and then early on in the year when you play some of those non-conference games that you just get up to get a few wins under your belt and work out a few of the early season struggles. But they were, just the stuff we saw with the team chemistry, them, having those specific words that they had to use in press conferences after they won games, the team chemistry, the way they were confident at Big Ten media days, the way that they understood the expectations and weren't running from them. I think there have been some disappointments throughout this season, and I think you can certainly say, especially these last 7 games. The last 7 games they've gone win-loss, 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 win. So it's been up and down, but I think right now you have to play loose and free. If you play tense, if you feel like we've got to win every single game, which, I mean, they're all must-wins. It's win or go home at this stage in the game for the Big Ten and the NCAA tournament. But if you're not having fun, if you're not playing confident, it's not going to be a long run. You can't play tense. You can't play timid. I don't think this Indiana team will play timid. I think that game against Iowa still gives you cause for concern because of how it looked. But for the most part, the last month and a half, maybe 2 months of the season, Indiana's been playing really well for the most part. So you'd like to see that carry over into the Big Ten tournament. They're going to get
I think they've been up and down personally.
Well, they have, but this is their best basketball of the season, is it not? Even in the losses, for the most part, I think they've played better than they did earlier in the year. Like that game, and they've dealt with injuries, and at certain points in the season, you understand that the injuries probably affected them more so. But I don't know. They've found ways to win games that I don't think coming into. Let me put it this way: if you would have told me how many close games that they've won, overcome some of that adversity, if you would have told me the situation in December, I would not have expected it.
Well, we can ask the man, Don Fischer, the voice of the Hoosiers, joins us now. Don, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How about you guys?
Good. We're at the that time of year, man. What a day yesterday was, not only in Bloomington, but as you look across the landscape of the Big Ten and the scores yesterday, you can chuckle and laugh and shake your head and just there's all kinds of things that came out of that because the standings of where people were and where they could be and where they ended up, Don, you may as well just take them and put them in a bottle and just shook them up and then dumped them out and said, that's where you finish, because that's what it was like yesterday. That was you've done more of these than anybody. Have you ever seen a crazier last day to the Big Ten?
Well, first of all, they had 6 games yesterday. Let's think about that. 6 games on a Sunday.
12. That's 12 out of the 14 teams.
Right. And Indiana, well, here's the other thing. They had 7 teams tied for second place in the conference going into that ball game yesterday. It's just an amazing scenario, and obviously a tribute to parity, I guess is the way you would put it, because this league is so tightly bunched. There's just nobody that can't beat somebody else. We've seen it from Ohio State and from Minnesota and from Nebraska. Nebraska's gotten hot here at the end. Minnesota knocked off somebody a week ago. I mean, you're seeing teams that you don't expect to win some ball games. All of a sudden, they get hot. They're knocking off people that they have no business knocking off, at least from a perspective. And from Indiana's scenario, they had to have everything fall right for them yesterday, and after they got beat by Iowa earlier in the week, they no longer controlled their own destiny. They had to have everybody else give them help, and everybody else did. It's just an amazing process, and certainly without question, Indiana got the breaks that they needed, and they finished third in the 3rd seed position as far as the Big Ten tournament's concerned to get that double bye, which is obviously something they really had to have.
Well, they haven't had it for so long. It's major of uber importance. You talk about movement. Michigan State gets the 4th double bye. They were in 9th place on Wednesday, and they didn't play that game. So that half game helped them get that, not having played that game. But But go ahead, Don. You were going to say something.
Well, just the whole thing. The whole thing about the double bye is that nobody, or everybody, I should say, had pressure. Almost every team had all this pressure because they all wanted the double bye. I mean, all 7 of the teams in second place had a chance at the double bye. So you had to have everything kind of fall into place, and nobody had a better scenario than that than Indiana did, because everybody that needed to get beat for the most part did, the exception being Northwestern, who gets the number 2 seed. So Indiana didn't get the number 2 seed. Now we're really ticked off about it.
Yeah. And that only makes a difference on who you end up playing, but they're on the opposite side as Purdue. We still have the possibility of a Purdue-Indiana final if that plays out to be that way, but there's a lot of games to be played between now and then. Indiana doesn't even know who they play yet. They will await that. And they play the last game on Friday, which will probably not happen until around 9:30, I'm going to guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing that's going to be interesting too. And I think it does hurt Indiana, because here's the one thing, guys, in my opinion, about this Indiana ball club right now. They've got to get their legs back. They are out of gas. They just don't have the same energy we saw back in that run in January and early February when they were winning ball games and really kind of dominating play. The getting their legs back, I think, this week is just critical. That's why I think the double bye was so important for them. And hopefully that takes place, because this team right now is playing, the guys on this team are playing so many minutes. I mean, look what Trace Jackson Davis did yesterday in that contest. I mean, he played 43 minutes, 41 seconds of the 45 minutes played. I mean, that's just, for a big guy like him, and the energy that he expends in a ball game, that's really hard to do. And then you had Hood Schifino, who has kind of hit the wall too from a defensive standpoint in the last couple of ball games, and he's playing 40 minutes and 10 seconds of the 45 minutes, and the starters are now playing so many minutes in this ball game. Miller Kopp played 37 plus yesterday. So your starters right now are being exposed from an energy perspective, in my opinion. And I think they've got to get their legs back. I just hope they don't practice as hard as they have been lately this week to just get that to happen. And look, they don't have as much prep time that they have to spend on ball games now, because they've seen all of these teams for the most part twice. And Maryland's a team that they haven't seen twice, but at the same time, they know exactly what they're going to get in these ball games now. So the prep time doesn't seem to me to be as important as getting their legs back.
Exactly. They know, and they can watch them. They'll get the opportunity to watch them play in advance of playing them as well. Race Thompson yesterday, I talked to him in the press, or that I asked him in the presser about it, but he looked like a man on a mission at a certain point, and I asked him what, and he said basically, Coach Woodson, he was in the paint once, made a turnover, and he said, score the ball, because after that, you could tell every time he touched the ball, he wasn't passing back out to anybody. He was going to go to the rim, and he did so with authority. And just his 16 points, he shot 70%. He was 7 of 10. So he was intent. His 16 points in 35 minutes, huge yesterday for Indiana.
Well, and in my humble opinion, I think his 2 best plays of the ball game were the 2 steals he got, one in late regulation and then one in the overtime. He had 2 of the best defensive plays that I think he's ever had as a player at Indiana, just because he was playing so hard at the end of that ball game, just as hard as he possibly could. I was happier for him than anybody else on this team yesterday, because he had a double-double. He had 16 points, 10 rebounds. Obviously, he had 2 of these critical steals in the ball game. And then, of course, he missed the 4 free throws that he probably could have taken Indiana out of a little bit of a struggle there if he'd have knocked in a couple of those. But nevertheless, so happy for him because he's a 6-year guy who's gone through all kinds of problems in his career physically, and he was able to get a win or help this team get a big win and get him the double bye.
I think your phone's going off. You just can't hear it.
Oh, I can hear it. I just
Okay. Yeah, he was 1 of 6 at the free throw line. Not just missing those 4, but he was 1 of 6. That's critical for Indiana because they ended up going 14 for 21. But yeah, what he did everywhere else, 70% from the field. He just got to hit those free throws because that's going to become critical. But if he continues to play like that, he's going to make Indiana a much more difficult team to play because everyone thinks it's just Trace Jackson Davis and Jalen Hood-Schifino, and that's not the case.
Well, it can't be the case. That's the thing about this Big Ten tournament. You're playing, if you're going to get to the championship game, you've got to play 3 straight days. And you've got to play, and it's back to back to back. You have no time. You've got to get help from a number of different people, in a tournament like this, because, like I said, it's back to back to back. There's no time. After that first ball game, you've got another game the next day and another the next day if you win both of those. So I just think right now the biggest question mark on this team is its bench. And as deep as we thought it was in the beginning of the season, it has evaporated down into it's not nearly as strong as it needs to be at this point in the season. And the minutes played by these other guys, they seem to be able to handle it to some degree. But the energy level that they're going to have to put out to win a Big Ten tournament is going to be significant, and it's going to be really tough to do if they don't get a lot of help from other people.
Well, and that was the question I was going to ask you, Don, is because when you look at this team, I think the starting rotation is good enough to win the Big Ten tournament. I think it's a starting rotation that, when it's at its best, can get to the Final Four. I don't know that they can win a national championship, but they have the talent to get to the Final Four. The bench has been so disappointing. It seems like every time you look at the stat category, and I kind of throw Iowa out because that was a bloodbath earlier in the week. The bench doesn't even get 10 points, right? They might not even get 6 points regularly. That's a huge concern because you've got to have the goal for me, if I'm Indiana, is to protect the lead to some degree, right? But they just can't do it. And it's not just they're not scoring. They can't defend really well. They turn the ball over. It's coming into the season. I would have said Indiana's got so much depth. If their starters aren't in good shape, they're going to be just fine. If their starters aren't playing well, see you later.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the bench has been a disappointment. There's no question about it. Obviously, Jordan Geronimo has been hurt. He's been out. He hasn't played. He didn't play yesterday. He was dressed. I thought maybe he would get in the ball game. I saw him warm up. I thought, well, it looks like he could play. But he did not play. Now we know that Xavier Johnson is not going to be a factor for this basketball team the rest of the year, even though we thought he might play this week and get back from his injury. And I understand completely his thinking process, trying to appeal to the NCAA for another year of eligibility because of the medical situation that he's had to deal with. And he got hurt in the 11th ball game of the season. You play 10 and get a medical red shirt. And he got hurt 9 minutes into that 11th game. So from that perspective, you understand completely why X didn't go through senior day and why he is going to appeal to the NCAA to get another year of eligibility, which I think he's got a good case. But you never know. I mean, the NCAA's got rules, and will they say, well, he's had his opportunity, and so we'll just have to wait and see on that. But so I still agree with the thinking process in that regard, and why he's not going to play the rest of this year. That said, they have got to have other people step up. Now, Tamar Bates came in yesterday and knocked down a couple of threes, which that's what we've been expecting from him in every game that he plays this year. He's talented enough to do that. He just hasn't done it. And I thought his defensive play the last 2 ball games, I think when he played against Purdue last Saturday, I thought he played pretty good defense in that ball game. He didn't do anything offensively, but his defense looked to me like it was strong, and he was putting pressure on their guards. but he's got to pick it up offensively like he did yesterday and start making some shots, because this team needs somebody off the bench that they can count on to score the basketball. Malik Renew has been the most reliable of that group, and sometimes he has a good game and sometimes he doesn't. The biggest problem with him is he can't stay on the floor because he can't stay out of foul trouble. So, right now, this bench has got to pick it up if this team's going to go very far in either tournament.
Yeah, Don, the rotation yesterday, 8 men, and including in that is Caleb Banks, who was not someone who was seeing any minutes at the start of the season. Then as the season progressed, we started seeing him in there, and for good reason. He looked like a man playing with his hair on fire when he comes in, but he's always active. You're going to get activity out of him, and it's usually not bad. He doesn't go in and commit stupid fouls. He's just always active, trying to get rebounds and doing things. So he's been a great addition, but he hasn't, and he can shoot, but he has not been a scorer in that role. And so they need somebody that can also score that comes in. So,
and I think he can score.
I believe it too. Yeah, he's a hell of a shooter.
Right. I mean, he could shoot the basketball, and I'd like to see him get more minutes, to be quite honest about it, because he can guard anybody on the floor. He's quick and athletic enough to do that. And he would cause some of these smaller guys, some of these smaller guards, he caused them some problems just with his length and his size out there. And he's quick enough to stay with most of them, but he hasn't played as many minutes at this point in the season as you would have liked to get him ready for this role, so to speak. I think he needs more and more time on the court. I don't think there's any question about that, because he can really guard at least 4 positions on the floor. And I have no problem with him being in there more minutes than he's played at this point.
I agree with you, because I think he is going to be a really good player for Indiana. He can shoot the ball. He's the Jordan Geronimo that we thought we were going to get with Jordan Geronimo. And I don't mean that as a slight to Jordan, but this guy has the athletic ability, and he may not be, the scoring ability. He may not be quite as athletic as Jordan, but he's got a lot in his package there to put together. Trey Galloway yesterday fouls out of the game because he had to do so much. And that's another reason what we're talking about. Not having help, of Xavier not being there.
Right.
Really, and that can play havoc when tournament time comes around.
Well, that's why Tamar Bates is the biggest question mark in this team right now. What he needs to provide them, because he can give them another guard that can handle the ball, can score the basketball, and play good defense. If he can step up and be more consistent with his performances in this tournament situation, he will help this team immensely. Because they, like I said before, the issue is a little bit of time to get a rest here and there for these starters. And without doubt, Tamar is a guy who can play the 2. He can play the 1 a little bit, not necessarily as a point guard, but he can bring the ball up the floor. He can guard people, the littler guards, so to speak. He's got that kind of quickness. And he has gotten better defensively. I do think that's one of the improvements that he's made this year with his play, as he's gotten to play better defensively than he was previously. But again, we're looking for help off the bench at this point. That's what we're talking about here. And honestly, if they don't get that help, I think they're short-lived in either tournament.
I agree with you. But the good thing is, for the first time since 2016, Indiana knows the question is not if, but where they're going to go. Last year, it was still a big if. This year, they know it's what seed are they going to get. I think that I think they stay strong at the 4 seed no matter what happens, unless they lose the first game in the Big Ten tournament. They're going to remain a 4 seed. Then it just becomes where they go. And I think that the great possibility is Orlando-Louisville, which would be tremendous for Indiana fans, because there is an abundance of IU alumni in Florida, and who doesn't want to go to Orlando? And then you come back to Louisville, and that would just be a sold-out Yum Center, and great for Indiana fans if they can make that happen.
Well, we'll see. I never get ahead of my skis when it comes to the tournaments and these kinds of things because there's only one scenario that's negative, and that's losing.
Yes,
because
right.
then you're done. So right now, you can concentrate on one thing, whoever the opponent is on Friday of this coming week. I'm not worried about our seeding. I think that'll all play out on its own.
Damn it, Don's got to bring common sense into this every time.
I'm just glad we're going to the NCAA tournament for the second straight year, and this year we don't have to play a play-in game.
I promise you, and I promise you, the fans are excited, and they're going to be giving Indiana a ton of support. That's another thing this team will have is an abundance of support wherever they end up.
And we probably will see an abundance of support tonight in Inside IU basketball with Mike Woodson and Terry Morin at the Southern Stone Restaurant.
That's right. So make sure you show up because this is the last one, right, Don?
Last show of the season. Obviously, both coaches will be on hand, and I know we'll have a packed house again this week, just like we had the last 3 or 4 weeks now that we've had the show. Obviously, each time we've been out there, it seems to grow because the excitement continues to grow for both programs.
Well, of course, Terry Morin and the Indiana women's team expected to be a number 1 seed, which will be incredible. So come out tonight to Southern Stone Restaurant for Don Fischer and Mike Woodson for Inside Indiana Basketball. Don, I cannot thank you enough, sir.
Thanks for having me, guys. See
you
you
guys.
guys.
Have a great day.
You too.
We got more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Our man Dustin Dopirak, the Indy Star, straight off of his world tour, I think, with the Pacers. Back, brought to you by our good friends from Remax Realty. If you're in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore and her 2 decades of experience. It could be the difference between you getting the home you want or not. And also, if you're in the Louisville, Southern Indiana area, Floyd, Clark, Harrison, Scott counties down there, Barbara Pop Real Estate Services have served those communities for 3 decades. No one can get you in the home quicker and less expensive than Barbara Pop. Reach out to her, Barbara at barbarapop.com, or Matt Lincoln, Matt at barbarapop.com. Back with more right after this. Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington is offering a very special 2-year goal.
Morning, y'all.
So are the
Good
commercials running, Joe?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's up?
I said I just want to make sure the commercials were running okay.
Yeah, they rolled. They just didn't roll online. I got them on the. Yeah.
Cool. Good morning, Mr. Dustin. How are you, sir?
Doing good, Mr. Coyle. How are you?
Good. I was in Indianapolis last week, but you were not.
I was not.
Way to go.
I've got a box for you and Kristen
You
Ari.
bet.
It's been in the back of my vehicle for a month now.
Alas.
I'm going to have to go back and add to the box before I come back up.
Oh, boy.
And there's no tournament sites of all places in Indianapolis this year.
You know, at some point, I mean, they can't play it here every year.
I know, but there's nothing there. There
Yeah.
should be something there. It's just too good of a spot.
It is. It's a good spot. But I
Great
think
spot.
everybody else. I think everybody else is getting jealous.
Yeah, well, you know what I say.
Heck with them. So
Too bad too bad we don't have the Big Ten conference located in Indianapolis.
It would be helpful.
Boy, oh boy, would that be sweet.
It would be helpful. It would be really nice.
Yeah, that would that'd be the coup de grace.
Mm-hmm.
How was your trip?
Good. I mean, I came home in between, did Dallas and San Antonio, and then came back, and then went up to Chicago yesterday. Went up and back. You know, didn't stay in Chicago at all. So,
Well, I'll be in Chicago Wednesday.
yeah, you will, and I'll be in
United
Detroit.
Center. Hey, funny how that works. How is the United Center still standing?
Standing.
Lost your connection. I think we've lost Dustin, I believe, right?
No, I'm here.
Not you.
Oh.
There are two Dustins. Collection with a sommelier on staff to help
With a sommelier.
Feast also provides a wide variety of cheeses, gourmet sandwiches, entrees, a coffee bar, bread, pastries, all made fresh and mouthwatering. Stop by Feast, Market, and Cellar today.
This segment is brought to you by Feast, Market, and Cellar. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, high atop the 18th fairway here on this. It's a good-looking day out there. What the heck's the temperature? I got to check that. As Dustin Dopirak joins us from Indy Star. Let's see. How warm is it? How warm is it? Anybody know besides I can't get to it quick enough, damn it.
I don't know. Do you know?
Well, phone says it's 48 in Indianapolis.
There you go.
I don't know if it's true or not.
I got 52 with an expected high of 70. Hello. I'll take it. How was your travel? How was your travels?
It was good. I mean, did Dallas and San Antonio, and flew back to Indy, so I was there from Friday to Saturday, and then just drove up and just went up and back to Chicago. Didn't
the
stay.
most important question: did you have water?
I did not get any water. Whatever, I failed you.
Damn.
There was not any within walking distance of my hotel either day. I got to Dallas, went straight to the game, pretty much. Well, not straight to the game. And San Antonio, I was just lazy. So, you know.
Is San Antonio not the cleanest city you've ever been in?
It's up there. I mean, the Riverwalk is gorgeous.
See, that's where I think I have a very skewed view because that's the only place I've ever been in San Antonio.
Right. If you leave the Riverwalk, it's different.
It's like it's a regular city.
It's a regular city, but like the Riverwalk is like you're on vacation. You're someplace entirely separate, and it feels like it's wild, and it's like it's very touristy. It's Ripley's Believe It or Not, and
really
rainforest cafes and stuff.
Oh God!
Remember the Alamo, baby.
I did go past the Alamo because it is apparently the anniversary. It was like
really
part of the anniversary because it was like 11 days or something crazy they were in there. But they had when I walked past there, they had just finished. There were speakers. There were high school bands dressed up in very Texas garb with there was fringe involved and stuff, and there was a lot. There was a lot happening, but it was a good time to go check it out.
Is it like just basically in town? There's stuff around it now, built around it.
Yes, I mean it's like it's right off, kind of above the Riverwalk. Like you would sort of it's almost like a subway. Like you get up off like an exit off the Riverwalk and like walk upstairs, and then it's right there. Like there's a Ripley's Believe It or Not and a Wassad's wax museum like across the street. But yeah, it's sort of it's built right into the city. I mean, like the city is sort of built around it, but it is above the Riverwalk. And I'm trying to think of like what else is close to it. So like there are some touristy things nearby. And it's not like it's got like a big, parking lot set up where, it's removed or anything like that. It's just kind of there. But it's cool. I mean, it's like a really cool thing to look at just in the middle of town. And like I said, I saw there were all kind of chairs set up. It was a big event. So.
San Antonio sounds a lot like St. Augustine, Florida.
It you know what? I actually told my wife we visited St. Augustine. I want to say, was about 2016 with her family. It's like San Antonio is like 100 St. Augustine's.
Oh God.
It's a lot. It's so much more. I mean, and I like St. Augustine. Now it was just because we were on vacation. It was like February. We got the Super Bowl down there that year, and so it was like nice to be in Florida when you're used to it being 20 at that point.
Right. Yeah.
But it was nice. I mean, I liked St. Augustine. I liked the historical feel. I liked the Spanish architecture, stuff like that. So San Antonio was also kind of up my alley, and
right.
You know, the Riverwalk's cool in a cool different, you know, a couple of different ways. Like I went for a run beforehand. I went like way down, you know, south of the river, and like got to see kind of the more scenic, more spread out areas of that. And I like the more downtown scene. It's just, I mean, like, you know, the cool thing about San Antonio is there's just so much space along the Riverwalk on the, like, where you could like, you know, stop and have a beer and just be on a river. And that's kind of cool to me. That works for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
While you were having beers on the Riverwalk and relaxing,
I had no beers on the Riverwalk, but anyway.
I was kidding. Just kidding.
Yeah.
I was at the NFL Combine, but I did not run the 40. No,
you should have.
Kenneth asking.
You were ducking it, frankly.
I did. I just didn't feel. You
were waiting for your pro day. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
Didn't want to just show it all off there.
Instead, he did the
but I see this
shrimp cocktail challenge.
We'll get to that. But how about this? Okay, when I was at my peak, I ran a high 4.6, almost a 4.7, but it was a 4.6. But I know that these guys are 100 pounds heavier than I was, at least 100 pounds. The speeds that these guys run at, it's mind-boggling. People, if you don't know how fast a 4.6 40 is, it's not like we're talking Superman that you see on, but that shows unbelievable quickness. But for the size of these guys to be able to run that's mind-boggling.
Oh yeah, it is. No, 4.6 40 is wild. I could never dream of a 4.6 40 in the best time of my life. You know, and Clancy's a heck of a player. I mean, like he's one of those guys that that doesn't get talked about as much because he was on a just okay team, you know, and Pitt was just okay this year. But like, I mean, was he ACC Defensive Player of the Year? He was definitely like all first team. He might have been All-American. You know, just a guy that had a really, really good year that just didn't get talked about because he just wasn't part of any really grander narrative, you know. One way or another, you know, like I said, I think it was 8-4 or 9-3 or whatever it was, and just not good enough to be talked about. But certainly not bad either. Wasn't one of those guys who was just on a great player on a bad team, was just average. But he's been a guy that was talked about all year. I mean, he had crazy stats, and I can't even remember what they were. But yeah, 4.6 40 for a guy that big is nuts. It's crazy. But that's, I mean, these guys are going to be better and better athletes, and that tells you why the game is going the way it's going. I mean, like it's part of the reason why they pass the ball so much is you cannot run it against these guys. You know, it's really, really hard to run it.
Your Pacers coming off of a win?
They're not mine, for the record.
Well,
I don't take any ownership in them.
It's the other Dustins. You just cover them.
Yes, exactly. Although they did stick me on in-house media yesterday because Chris Duarte decided to take my recorder and ask me questions.
I saw that.
It was kind of entertaining. Duarte's funny. But no, big win obviously for them. Tyrese Halliburton, game-winning three with 2.7 seconds left. He had a terrific game. 29 on 11 of 7 shooting, 6 of 9 for 3. You saw just again it's becoming an even more drastic difference who they are when they have them and who they are when they don't. You know, as Nembhard is starting to really struggle, I think he's kind of hitting a rookie wall, especially on offense. I mean, he can still defend some people, but you know, you're just not seeing a lot of offensive production from him right now. Obviously, certainly a different player that he was when Halliburton missed the first time, when he missed a couple games with the groin injury back in December, and he went off. You know, Nembhard kind of struggled more in that 10-game stretch that Halliburton missed in January, and has really. It was really been tough for him, you know, since then. But like Halliburton just totally changed them. They go out and they really laid an egg against San Antonio. Didn't take that game seriously. Didn't play particularly well at all. And you know, knew they had a big win in Chicago and played really well. Had some didn't defend really well, but rebounded, which was interesting and kind of rare. for them. Got offensive rebounds, which is really rare for them, and just did a good job at scrapping. Duarte and Matherin did a really good job at playing off each other. Second unit was really good. So it's a big game. Gets them into 11th, into a tie for 11th. So they're and they had the tiebreaker with Chicago. So like there's space. Obviously, the Wizards are 10th, and they're a game and a half back of them. So they're still in that play-in race. Basically, they're still part of it. They still have contact with it, and they've got a chance to keep rolling a little bit. They get Houston on Thursday, Detroit on Saturday and Monday. So those are 3 games if they take them seriously, they should win. They've got Philly tonight, and you would think they shouldn't win that game, but it's not another question. They've played even really good teams like that close, and they've come up with some big ones. So they've got a chance to get on a little bit of a run here if they take those games seriously.
Well, and out of the All-Star break, they had a thrilling game against Boston. Had chances to win that. Then they've won. I mean, they've won 3 of their last 4 games. You set aside that San Antonio performance. What is it? Simply that Tyrese Halliburton is back? I mean, I think even when he returned after those 10, 11 games he missed, there was still some bumps in the road because they hadn't quite regained that chemistry they had earlier in the season. I mean, did that All-Star break not only give them rest, but give them a chance in practice to kind of get back to what their rotations are like? Or is there something else that's been going on the floor that you've picked up on that's helped them look like they were through the first 45, 50 games?
Yeah, no, there's a few things. I mean, for one thing, I think Tyrese had to get his rhythm back and kind of get, he definitely, it's not so much that he was in pain. I mean, I think he was playing with the brace, and that didn't help. He didn't enjoy playing with the brace at all, and it did not help his shot. He made a joke, I think, when he finally got it off. He's like, I when I'm missing shots, I can at least, make blame it on this big JJ, I won't
JJ Watt brace. Yeah.
Big JJ Watt brace. I'll say it. Big ass JJ Watt brace. And, basically, I think since then, I mean, like, he slowly just got his rhythm back. And I think he was trying to figure out what's forcing, what's too much. I mean, like, he was really in a groove before the injury, helped them to 8 wins and 8 out of 10, really felt like he was making steady progress. And then just got knocked off of it. And they had some difficult, that was a difficult stretch of schedule, if I remember correctly. They come back, lose by a point by the Lakers. They beat Sacramento, but then they had Cleveland, Miami, Phoenix, Washington, Utah. I mean, those are tough teams, each and every one of them. They rally back to beat Chicago on the 15th, and they had Boston. So part of it is, I mean, they were all those losses are to teams that are in playoff position. I think Utah still is. And a lot of them were competitive, but, they just weren't particularly good. So, no, I think getting Halliburton right, figuring out where Jordan Nwora fits, adding him to the mix, getting, Duarte has really been up and down, and Duarte has been really good lately. It has been just finding, getting everybody back in their place. You had to shake up with Halliburton hurt. You had to shake up with the trade deadline, and, you got the All-Star break. Everybody got a minute to get their minds right. Guys went to Utah. The guys that went to Utah, I think it was good for them, to go out and perform well. All 4 of them performed well between Halliburton and Hield and Nembhard and Matherin. I think it was sort of reset, recenter. You guys are good. You're not total trash. Trust yourselves, whatever. And they've been good. They've been pretty good since then. I mean, they're at least competitive, and I don't know if that's going to be enough to get them in the play-in, but they're clearly not making the attempt to flat out tank. So they have a shot at getting in the play-in round.
As Bob Kravitz says, tanks but no tanks.
Yeah.
Hey, we've got to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about who might win the Big Ten tournament and who's your dark horse. You got Purdue, Indiana, Northwestern, plenty more. Hey, brought to you by our good friends from Metalworks Brewing Company, served at all the Endeavor hospitality restaurants. Make sure you can go straight to the source. Metalworks, located right off the square in Bloomington. Culmination of a passion for beer, custom metal art, alongside a desire to be actively involved in the community. Stop by and have Metalworks Brewing today. Back with more from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this.
We'll be right back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington.
We're still there? No. What was I going to say? Yeah, how about the fact that Northwestern's a 2 seed and Ohio State and Wisconsin play the first day?
I know.
I can't like
insane.
It's so just even like you knew they were like it is what it is. Like this is what the season was, but like how many times has it been the opposite? Like I mean, just so many occasions you've seen Northwestern playing in that first round. You know,
and now they got a double bye.
Yeah, they got a double bye.
They lost two of their best players
from
last season.
Yeah,
playing in North Carolina and Duke.
Yep. And North Carolina's not going to make the tournament. So how about that?
Yeah, it's not looking good. It's not looking good. I mean, like, they're North Carolina. I still feel like if something goes right for them in the ACC tournament, the committee will give them some benefit of the doubt just by virtue of their North Carolina. They don't want to make the first team that started the year number 1 and didn't make the tournament.
That's true. Yeah.
But, they're not in a good place. Not in a good place at all.
And that just shows how bad the ACC is. For them to be 11-9, I mean, they're not good.
Yeah.
Boy, Indiana would like to see Nebraska beat Minnesota and upset Maryland.
I mean, yeah. I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, is Nebraska playing better than I realize?
They've won 6 of their last 8, and they just beat Iowa on the road.
Yeah, that's fair.
The one thing I would say though to that
when Iowa needed it for a double bye,
I would say the thing to that is if Indiana played Nebraska on Thursday, I would be worried. But since they would have had to play 2 games and it'll be Indiana's first, like I think the fatigue factor comes into play on that one.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. Like that's where the momentum turns into tired. You know,
right.
2 wins.
Right.
You know, a lot of those. A lot of people win the second game when they've played and the other team hasn't.
Right.
Third game, that's the issue. Yeah, Rutgers, Maryland. I mean, you know, Wisconsin, Rutgers, Maryland. There's a couple good wins in there. I don't know. I don't trust it. I figure, you know, not that Maryland's great, and obviously they just come off a loss to Penn State.
Well, Maryland's terrible away from the Xfinity Center, so
yeah. It's such a bizarre. It's just been such a bizarre league, and it really, you know, like really came into focus this week. I mean, like midway Saturday, I left the rankings when it was like there was like 7 teams in a row that were 11-8.
Right.
Like that was wild. I think somebody might have won or lost on Saturday night that changed it, but it was like there was a period there.
Pick up at BB's Market with no extra charge. So leave the heavy lifting to us and enjoy healthy eating with stocked meals in your fridge. Order online today at thefreshfork.com. Fresh Fork is a proud partner of WOW Network. This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday, getting your week started after an unbelievable weekend of basketball, college basketball mainly, as all of the college tournaments are set, the ones that weren't played last week. I don't want to say the smaller conferences, the non-Power Fives this week. All of the Power Fives will be in action: ACC, Big 12, Big 10, SEC, Pac-12, etc. Of course, most people concerned around here with the Big 10, and which starts on Wednesday. Ohio State taking on Wisconsin. That's at a 5:30, and then later on, Minnesota taking on Nebraska in the same bracket that Indiana is in. Indiana ended up with the 3 seed, Dustin, which the 2-3 is just where we thought the hope that they may end up, and it's on the opposite side of Purdue. So that still leaves the possibility of an Indiana-Purdue championship, which would be great for fans. But this is going to be, if you look at chalk it's easy, but man, there's no way to use chalk in any tournament this year, and the Big Ten is included in that, I think, especially when you have games that are just day after day. Purdue, Indiana, Northwestern. I should have said Purdue, Northwestern, Indiana, 1, 2, 3 seeds. How about Michigan State sneaking into that fourth double bye? That's the funniest thing, this whole deal. They were 9th on Wednesday. 9th.
Mm. I mean, yes, but in the same way, like they were 9th a game back. I mean, it I'm going to go just call up the standings here. I mean, it is totally nuts that you have, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams are either 12-8 or 11-9, and 2 more are 10-10. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 teams finished within 2 games of each other. Like and a lot of that could have gone either way on a couple bounces of balls. I mean, like, Michigan's 11-9, Indiana's 12-8. That's the difference between having a double bye in the 3 and being the 8. Like,
and Michigan State didn't have to play the game with Minnesota, was it? They got canceled.
Yeah, I think it was. That sounds right to me.
That gave them the edge in winning percentage.
They probably would have beaten Minnesota, just for the record.
Probably.
There's that. But I'm
gonna give them that. I'm gonna give them that.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it's sad and bizarre in America 2023 that's we have a, the Big Ten standings affected by a mass shooting is awful.
That's
but
true.
All the same. Yeah. I mean, like it's just a totally bizarre year. And it's like, I had a sense of this, just going back in July or June or whatever it was when Trace decided to stay and sort of looked into the suggestion that Indiana could be the favorite in the league. And you could tell, like, man, this is going to be all over the place. I mean, like, if you look at it, obviously there's some teams that are definitely not in the position that I thought they were going to be. Certainly thought Ohio State was going to be good and Northwestern was going to be bad, and it's the total opposite. But considering what everybody lost, you had a sense that the season could be all over the place, and it's been even more all over the place than you would have thought. I mean, like, I think we were just talking last week about, I don't think anybody thinks that Purdue is like a sure thing to win this sucker, and they won the league by 3 games. Like I think they are very vulnerable in this tournament, and they won the league by 3 games. And just everything else is up in the air. Everybody, almost everybody in the Big Ten is just
that's
okay.
easy to say because if you look at the bottom of the standings and you see Ohio State, they beat Ohio State on a last second 3. Right above them is Nebraska. They beat them in double overtime. So yeah, it's anybody can beat anyone in this league. Yeah,
no, it's like this. Seeding obviously matters. I mean, it's hard to win it if you don't have that double bye. It's really hard to win it if you don't have that double bye and you don't get, only having to play 3 games is really, really nice. Really, really helpful. Getting all the way to the quarters, really helps your cause. But could Illinois or Iowa win it? Yeah. Are those 2 teams good enough to win it? Yeah. Is Michigan good enough to win it? Yeah. They absolutely are. Like, I don't think they will, just because of the disadvantage, just of having to play 4 versus having to play 3. But is it?
Didn't Iowa do that last year though? Iowa did. I'm pretty sure they were a 5 seed last year and ended up winning the tournament. I think I recall that. But
I'd have to look it up. It could have been.
I almost think as long as you were in the top 10 and avoided that day 1 game, I feel like legitimately anybody 1 through 10 could win the tournament. Like, I think Penn State, the way they've played the last couple games, they've played with fire a little bit, but they can light it up just as well as anybody. Yeah. Maryland might be the outlier there because they are so bad away from home. Mm-hmm. I don't think you look at the draws. Yeah, Indiana would have liked to have the 2 next to its name. I don't think it matters. Like, I think there's no matchup there that benefits them. They played poorly when they were on the road against Maryland. and I don't know who does Northwestern play the winner of.
Penn State, Illinois.
Penn State, yeah. So,
yeah, I think you'd rather get the winner of Maryland, Nebraska than the winner of Penn State, Illinois.
I think so too.
Yeah,
absolutely. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, now so I don't think the seeding matters. I mean, like I think Northwestern's still a positive for them. If Indiana makes it to playing Northwestern, I mean, Northwestern has a better chance of being upset, I think, than they do again because they just wouldn't like that matchup just the way Penn State's playing, and the way that Illinois is just still a tough out. Like I mean, I know they've got their flaws. They're 11-9 in the league, and Indiana's looked pretty good against them, but they're still a tough out. There's still some talent on that team between Mayer and Shannon, and because they avoided Shannon, right? Last time Penn State, Indiana played them, they didn't have to play Terrence Shannon. He was hurt, if I'm not mistaken. Didn't he have a concussion? So yeah, no, I think you'd rather be. You would rather have that set up if you're Indiana. You'd rather be looking at Maryland, Nebraska versus looking at Penn State, Illinois. But again, like I think Northwestern would be a tough out for them if they get there.
Shimitori 66 has his own bracketology formula, baby. Says that he doesn't see Indiana dropping below 5. I don't think they drop below 4. Like I said, I think that as long as they don't lay an egg in the Big Ten tournament and lose on the first day, they're going to stay a 4. I think they're high enough on the 4 line that they're not going to drop off of that, which in turn I think might give them the opportunity to go to Orlando and Louisville. You
keep saying that, but I think that's wishful thinking.
Well, look at I'm not the only one that thinks that. If you pull up a lot of the bracketologists, because the NCAA wants teams to be closer. They want them to be in Louisville if possible because they want the Yum Centers sold out as opposed to having 30 people in it.
I think you're right on Louisville. I'm not convinced on the Orlando aspect though.
Well, where else would they go?
Columbus, Des Moines.
I thought Columbus would feed into to New York, into the East region.
It doesn't have to feed in there.
Yeah, those first round games those locations don't really matter.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I would prefer Columbus because that would allow coverage of both the men's and the women's because the women will be playing in Bloomington at the same time.
Sure.
Their first round is going to be in Bloomington, which normally would be a lucky break for us trying to cover, but except for now they've moved it to where they're on the same weekends, just opposite days, and that doesn't do us a lot of good. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where they end up. But I sure hope that they end up the men coming through Louisville and the Yum Center. That would be fantastic for fans and media alike for travel.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was just looking at bracketology right now. I mean, Lenardi, I know Lenardi's not gospel or whatever, but Lenardi at the moment has them at the 4 in the Midwest, which would line them up with Kansas, Orlando, and then would send them to Kansas City. So they need to be. I mean, it just comes down to whether they're lined up with Alabama. Like right now, Alabama would get the South seed. You would figure UCLA would go out west. If they get that number one, Purdue would have to play their way back into it. That I think Purdue's best bet would have to be getting the East because
I think someone would have to play their way out of the number 1 seed.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. And they could. I mean, like I don't think any of those 4. I guess Houston. Houston. I think probably is the only one of the 4. No, Houston and Kansas probably. Actually, no. 3 of the 4 probably. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Little brain trust going on here.
Unless Purdue wins the league and wins the tournament, and one of those 4 lose it and do it in embarrassing fashion, I think Purdue ends up being a 2. I really liked what I saw from UCLA on Saturday night against Arizona. That was a pretty impressive performance. Yaquez was really, really good, and Campbell's really, really good, and the Singleton guy was terrific. But I don't know if you're going to get that all the time. But I really like that Arizona team, and UCLA handling Arizona was impressive. That's a big win. So if they could do really good in the tournament, I think they're in good shape to get that fourth number one. Everybody just loves Kansas's resume, just the wins they have, obviously just coming out of that league, probably keeps them up there. Houston, just the fact that they're probably going to go get it out of there with 1 or 2 losses is probably going to keep them up there. And Bama's probably too good. You can't. The sad part is you can't do anything with Bama. Nobody is going to enjoy Bama doing well in this tournament, but they're going to. It is not going to be fun, and they could win it, and if they win it, it's going to be miserable. But
I don't think that they win it.
I don't either, just because it seems like teams that are carrying that kind of baggage never go the distance. But much baggage as he's going to be carrying, Brandon Miller's really good at basketball. We could obviously we
just set the other stuff aside.
Yeah,
the basketball
all
portion.
of that other stuff.
I don't know how else to say it. I know what you're saying, but
right.
It's hard to separate.
And again, I think we talked about it on here before. There is no chance of them, the police or whatever, the detective or the district attorney, whoever it was like, yeah, there is nothing we could possibly charge him with. It's just a. Do you like the idea of having somebody on your team that gets a text that says, "Hey, bring my gun," and doesn't say no?
Or doesn't say why,
doesn't ask why, any of the above, that's what you're looking at. But there's no legal entity in the country that would charge him for anything. There isn't, not the way things are set up. So there's nothing that is going to, come in and take him out of there or whatever and make it so he's not playing. He's going to play. He is going to play. And as long as he is going to play, they have a chance to win the whole thing. So, but anyway, getting back to all that, rather than digging into the darkness there of just everything that happened in that tragic scenario, Alabama's probably going to get a 1 seed. And so, yeah, it's just a question of where they think Indiana lines up.
Yeah, we'll certainly see. But the thing is, as usual, it's everything is in their own hands. It's you win, and I'm not saying they have to win the Big Ten tournament because they don't. They just have to play good basketball. And
they might not. Again, since they're in the quarters, they might not even if they lose to Illinois or not Illinois. If they lose to Maryland, I don't think it kills them. No. You don't move them back a whole line for that.
No. But here's the thing. Indiana also has an opportunity to win the Big Ten tournament.
Sure.
And maybe the best opportunity, well, without question, this is the best chance they've had since 2016, at least, when they had the Big Ten champions, because you've beaten Purdue twice. You would have to go through a team that you have not beaten yet. But I think that they're capable of beating them. There's no team that cannot beat anybody in this league. Without question. So, who wins
Minnesota.
this? Who wins this? Well, yes. Who wins the Big Ten tournament? Is it Purdue? Is it Indiana? Is it Northwestern? Who's the dark horse? Who's your dark horse, Dustin Dopirak, for this thing?
If I get a dark horse, let me call it up. I'll say Illinois. I'll say either Illinois or Michigan. How far back do you have to be? Could you be a dark horse at a 5? Iowa could win it.
In this league, you can be a dark horse anything after 3.
Okay. Iowa could win it. I think Iowa could win it. Illinois could win it. Michigan can win it.
I think
if you're going to say Penn State, I'm going to struggle with that because I went there and I just can't believe it.
I was going to say Penn State.
Okay.
No, they don't have a chance. I'll take Michigan State.
They don't have a chance. Look at who. Penn State plays Illinois, and they housed Illinois both times they played. Then if they win, they play Northwestern, who they just beat, and then if they win that, then they might play. They'd play the winner of Indiana Maryland. Well, they've got wins over both of those teams. So, and I know you can't look back, but it's not like Penn State got blown out by any. The only team Penn State has struggled with this season, off memory, would be Purdue. I'm not saying they're going to win it, but I feel like if they're shooting the 3 as well as they can, they could be there on Sunday.
It's possible. Again, I'm a grad, so I just have a hard
Understood.
time believing that good things happen to them. And I say this like Mike is a really good coach, man.
Mm-hmm.
Mike is a really good coach. Shrewsbury's terrific, and you know he will probably not be there very long. You know it's a tough place to win. It's a tough place to maintain. You know, it's a tough place to recruit. Really is what it is. It's a tough place to recruit because you bring them in there and you know they've got the curtains off and you know around the arena and everything like that. It's like, so we don't even need that upper deck. We're not getting that many people. Yeah, I mean that's what it's like. So it's tough, but you know, like they've got enough players right now. Pickett's terrific. You know, Winter's obviously getting game winner after game winner right now. So I mean, they have a chance. Like, I just can't speak that sentence out loud as a grad to be like, yeah, Penn State might win the Big Ten basketball tournament. Like, that doesn't compute for me since the Crispin era anyway. You know, at that point, the Crispin boys were wild cards and you never knew what could happen. You know, like they'd just throw up enough threes and they would have a chance. But, you know,
that's why I would put it in the dark horse category because I feel like they're more of a wild card. Would it be surprising to see them on Sunday? Yes. Is it out of the realm of possibility? Absolutely not.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I think I view Michigan, Iowa, and Illinois as all more viable just by virtue. Probably by virtue of the name on the jersey, to be honest.
Right.
But it's partially because, you know, like on some level they were used to it. I mean, and also as good as, I mean, Pickett's really, really good, but like, you know, all those other teams have pros. You know, Michigan has Dickinson, that's a pro. Iowa has Murray, he's a lottery pick. Illinois, you know, has Shannon, he's a pro. You know, and Mayer's probably a pro. You know, like there's a good chance those guys have draftees. And so, like, I'm just more likely to give those guys a little bit more benefit of the doubt because they could just go off. And you know, like Keegan and Chris went nuts at the Big Ten tournament last year. You know, Chris has a chance, I think, to just be the guy and go get 30 a couple nights in a row and just win the sucker. You know, I think that's another question. And like Iowa could just shoot it and do crazy Iowa things and win. You know, and I don't think that's wild. And you know, like Michigan obviously collapsed down the stretch, but I mean, like Dickinson's still really, really good, man. You know, and so I think they've got a shot. And like, it's not out of the question at all to imagine Michigan going in and beating Purdue. I don't think it's crazy.
Right.
I don't think it's likely. I think Edey still wins that matchup one-on-one, and so that makes things even easier for them. But I mean, shoot, Rutgers is still, you know, we're not talking about Rutgers. They got a crack at it.
No.
You don't think so?
No, their offense is terrible. They're not.
It is, but they make your life miserable.
They do.
It's not good for tournament play, but you know, they still do make your life miserable.
Dustin, what's up next for you, my friend?
Sixers tonight, Pacers, Sixers. Come watch Joel Embiid.
Oh, wow. Yeah, there you go.
If you're an ND, you got it, you know. Embiid and Harden and like, you know, the big win for them on Saturday, beating the Bucks. And they were fading. Sixers had lost some games against those top teams, you know, gotten beat by Boston recently. So, I mean, they've got to obviously make their stand and prove that they belong to be in that sort of top 3 range and, you know, be at least a conference semis team and stuff. And, you know, but that's still a tough team. And Embiid's a tough guy to beat. But Pacers had a crack at him in January. So, you know, could be tough, could be interesting.
Make sure you give him a follow, Dustin Dopirak from Indy Star. Appreciate you, brother.
All right.
And Maxine. We'll see you both next week.
Yeah.
Hey, we've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We'll talk more about the Big Ten tournament. All tournaments, actually. Get caught up on all things that happened over the weekend. And as we get ready for basketball mania, baby, we're days away. Brought to you by our good friends from Reynolds Family Dentistry. If you're in the Sellersburg area, stop in and see Dr. J. Make sure you keep that championship level smile. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat right after this.
We'll be right back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy of Bloomington.
If you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area.
All right. I don't know if Jim can hear me, but this is my last segment today.
Okay.
Bam. What?
DC General, I see you on here doubting my skills, man. And Jody, does John not give you a list of how to run the sponsors?
He hasn't given me an updated list since like November of last year. So I'm just running with that one. But
okay, tell him you need an updated list. ASAP.
Yeah, sorry about that. And just to let you know, I'm running the Remax segment sponsorship. This one, I know you already mentioned it, but I didn't put that on the radio.
That's okay. Don't just put something else from. Damn, I can't even think right now.
All right, 30 seconds.
Well, boy, doubting my skills. Do you think I sat around all my damn life? Check out their custom growlers. Metalworks Brewing Company has an updated menu, new brews, and will be offered in all Endeavor Hospitality restaurants. Come taste with Dr. Hops' Brewing. Metalworks Brewing Company. Bring your passion and your thirst.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday. It is the start of hopefully a beautiful week. Beautiful day. Well, of course it's a beautiful week. Basketball tournaments are starting, at least the ones that we are paying attention to. Big Ten, all the big ones. Of course, the Big Ten tournament begins on Wednesday. Indiana not playing till Friday night, the late game, which will be about 9:30 Eastern time. But there's other leagues. Who's going to win the Big 12 gunfight? They should call that the gun shootout at the OK Corral.
There you go.
There's no Arizona in their league, but there's much. You've got Kansas and all those old Kansas cow towns where Wyatt Earp used to something. Because that's what the Big 12 is. It's a gunfight.
Yeah,
it is literally a shootout. My God, they have five. I forget how many teams was it that were in front of Indiana? Five
or six
from the big. And I'm only saying that on the seed lines, on the linear seed lines. It's
right.
nuts.
Kansas, Texas, Kansas State, Baylor. Was Iowa? Maybe it was only four. Was it? Was Iowa State ahead?
No, it was. Yes, or Kansas State. One of the
Kansas,
two.
Yeah, well, Kansas, Texas, Kansas State, and Baylor. and then it would be Iowa State and TCU. Maybe TCU was ahead. I don't know. I don't know. I don't remember.
It's so much and so much to change. It's going to change, of course.
Right.
West Virginia. West Virginia has to play in the first day, I think, of their tournament.
Yep.
They just beat Kansas State on Saturday. They're already solidly in the NCAA tournament, according to Lunardi, as a 10 seed. They've been on the bubble a lot leading up to that, but that's what is their league in the record now? 6-9 or something?
Probably 7-11.
It's what a crazy season now. But how much of this has to do? Because all right, we're not talking about just the Big Ten. We're talking about the Big 12 and the Big 10. Look at the SEC. They're going to send 8 teams to the tournament right now, according to Joe Lunardi. Now, 2 of those teams are at the very, very bottom, but 8 teams from the SEC? Are you out of your mind?
Yeah, that is not a very good league.
No, but my point is this because of the transfer portal?
What do you mean?
All of this parity across the way.
Yes, I do think so. And
I mean, you've got all of these leagues that are this deep. I mean, you got 8 teams from the SEC going. Now the ACC has been punched in the face.
Right.
They have. I don't know if they've not. I don't know what's going on in the ACC because it's not like they're not landing players. Look at North Carolina. Hell, they pulled Northwestern's best player away from them, and Northwestern is kicking their ASS this year on the floor. So it's just kind of funny.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's created more parity. I think too. You see, I think it helps in some capacity, maybe some of the mid majors, because now a lot of those players can get. I mean, they can have maybe not an NBA level guy, but a high level starter on their team. You know, so
look at this. Look at
West
that number.
Virginia, 24 quad 1 and 2 games. Really, wow. Yeah, that's pretty tough.
Do you know how many the last time I checked, how many quad 1 wins that Houston had played on the year?
Wasn't it? They played 5?
5 total. They were 4-1.
Wow.
That's why it's not that I'm saying Houston's not good, but you take a team like West Virginia that is just, they're going to come into the NCAA tournament with 2 black eyes, tape on their nose.
Yep.
Because they've had the crap beat out of them all year. But guess what? They're going to be PO'd, ready to play. I'm just saying, not them, just teams like that.
Right.
When teams like Houston come up against teams like that multiple times, I'm not sure that it doesn't eventually. That's how teams like Houston get beat, I think.
Yeah, I agree with your point. The one counter I would make would be, look at what happened to Big Ten each of the last 2 years. And I know we've talked with Mike DeCourcy about this, and he's talked about how their seeding does not project them to get to the Final Four or the Sweet, whatever the case might be. So I understand that point of view, but the previous 2 seasons, the Big Ten was loaded with NBA talent, great teams. A lot of teams we thought were capable of getting to the Final Four. For a couple of years there in a row, we talked about how it was the best league in the country, and I think it was. But then when March Madness rolled around, they laid eggs multiple times. Nobody got past the Sweet 16 last year. I don't think anybody got past the Sweet 16 the previous year. So that would be my concern for the Big 12. Was the league so difficult that it's going to hurt them in March Madness because they're going to come in, like you said, limping, or does it help them because they played such a strong league and they know how to play a multitude of styles and a multitude of opponents? I don't know the answer. It's just based on what we saw the previous 2 seasons out of the Big Ten. I'm not convinced the Big 12 is going to run roughshod over the NCAA tournament just because it was the best league.
Oh, I'm not saying that either. I'm just saying, a team like Houston that has pretty much had free run through the year because let's just be honest, their schedule's not exactly loaded with hurdles.
Well,
but when you end up getting in the tournament and then you start playing teams that have been in those situations all year long, their players are a little more accustomed to it.
That is a true point. And then the counter to that would be Gonzaga's made it to the championship game a couple times, and they play then it becomes a question of, because they're so well rested. I don't know if well rested, but when you beat teams by 30 points, you don't have to log the same amount of minutes. Now, Gonzaga's not going to be in that conversation this year, I don't think, because they're not nearly as good. But that could be the case for Houston. Those players don't have to log as many minutes because they're beating everybody, and they don't have to put as much on the line.
How about that? I mean, we're not going to – that'll be great conversation next year, but, I forgot about that. How about Houston going into the Big 12? Woo! Hey, Houston, the Big 12 is going to be – Big 12 is going to be –
tough.
Oh, they are what they are. Hey, Dustin, Dustin's got to head out, unfortunately. But we love him, and we'll miss him, but he'll be back tomorrow.
He will be.
And we'll have plenty more to get to as we get closer and closer to the tournament. Brother, you go out and have yourself a good day.
You guys too. See you tomorrow.
All right. We've got more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Southern Stone, where you can find Inside Indiana Basketball tonight, located at Patterson and Rogers in Bloomington. If you're in and around the Bloomington area, stop by and check out the show. Mike Whitson will be there, along with Don Fischer, of course, and Indiana women's coach Terry Morin, as well, as they await the selection process coming up on Sunday, where they are expected to be a number 1 seed. Very cool. More coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat. We're back with it right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether it's at our place or your.
Man, I got to find that other stupid voice modulator that I took out. That's why my mic wasn't hooked up when I started the show.
Oh, okay.
It sounds fine now, right?
Yeah, no, you're great now.
Yeah,
Just
I
a
was
little
going to say.
weird at the beginning.
Well, that's because my mic wasn't hooked up.
Makes sense.
Damn it. Yeah, Joe Lenardi's got Indiana as a 4. Oh, no, in Orlando. And then Kansas City. Damn. Son of a bus. Who's in Louisville? God damn it. That can change. Virginia. They need to get moved over to that. Yeah, I'd like to see them in the South region. Wow, Penn State holding on. We should have done a tournament bracket. Maybe we'll have to do that. Oh, I'll have to get Pete to put that together. All right, let's get a Indiana Sports Beat Radio NCAA tournament bracket put together. How about that? Hey, did you get that clip from Race
I do, if you want to use it.
I absolutely do.
30 seconds.
Exceptional dining experience. With weekly specials, quick, attentive service, Southern Stone Restaurant provides delicious 5-star comfort food with a Southern charm at 2-star prices. Southern Stone Restaurant is part of Endeavor Hospitality's Wow Club.
This segment is brought to you by Courtroom Sports Grill in Bedford. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here on this Monday as we are early into March, but that is great. Brought to you by Courtroom Sports Grill down in Bedford. Great place to take the family, meet the guys for a game, or just go for lunch. Handmade Cajun cuisine. It's awesome. Also newly opened down in Bloomington for a game, Hank's Pizza Mac. Oh my gosh. The mac? It's not your mama's macaroni and mac and cheese, I can tell you that. You got Meat Locker, Veggie Delight, the Floridian, Hoosier Pie, Blazing Buffalo, Memphis Blues, Mauna Luau. Woo! I've only tried a couple, and they're unbelievable. Philip pointing out that North Carolina, close to missing the tournament. First time a preseason number 1 would ever miss their he's starting to lose me there. Oh, first time a preseason number 1 would ever miss. They are 1-9 against quad 1 teams, and only quad 1 win is over Virginia, who's number 30 in the net. If they fall below 30, it would no longer be a quad 1 win. Can you imagine being 0-10 in quad 1 wins? That would be something. But yeah, just sheer fact. But that the fact that they were a preseason number 1 really doesn't mean that was based on last year, and now because of the portal, everything changes. Indiana was a preseason favorite to win the Big Ten, as was Illinois and Michigan. Not Purdue, not Northwestern. So preseason selections from now on, forget about them. Because you just don't know. There's going to be too much change that happens over the course between the end of this season and the beginning of next season with the transfer portal. Indiana is going to be a completely new team next year. You're not going to have Jalen Hood-Schifino. You're not going to have Trace Jackson-Davis. You're not going to have Race Thompson. You're not going to have Miller Kopp. Last time I checked, those are 4 starters. So I'm going to guess that's about 85% of the offense, maybe 90. My point being is you're going to see a new team on the floor next year for Indiana. Now, it won't be completely new because you're going to have Xavier. You're going to have Trey Galloway. But what else are they going to bring in? And Xavier coming back is, I can't even quantify how big that is. Andrew, you're right. Preseason projections are worthless now. That has changed. It didn't used to be, because you could actually predict. You had an understanding of what was coming, of how good a team was. But because of the change now, you just simply don't. Look at North Carolina. Not to jump back and change subjects, but there was a reason they were preseason number 1. They played in the national championship game last year. And they only added to their team. They had Armando Bacot. And then they added the Nance kid from Northwestern. On paper, they were so much better. Paper doesn't win a championship. But I was talking about the change, how the reason for these preseason projections are just not very good, because you don't know what and it's not that you don't know who's on there. You don't know what the chemistry is going to be like. You don't know how well someone's going to play. What's Indiana going to be like next year? We've got a lot to do with this year. I'm just saying, we're just having some fun. We've talked about everything coming up, but just having a little fun here. Robert says that what I'm describing somewhat describes where Purdue was at the beginning of the season. Malik has great move scoring. Malik, there's a guy I left off of this. You got Malik back. Indiana next year is going to be a completely different team. You're losing Jalen Hutchefino, Trace Jackson Davis, Race Thompson, Miller Kopp. All right? You're going to have Xavier Johnson, Trey Galloway, and Malik Renew. Not a bad core. Malik Renew is going to be a bad man. And I think he can develop this year into that guy. And having Xavier and Trey Galloway with another year. But then what Indiana it brings in the portal is going to be critical. But Xavier coming back is, I promise you, people were, I saw on Twitter, a lot of Indiana fans like, oh my God, this guy, he's not going to, excuse me. That's the best thing that Indiana could have, that's the best news Indiana could have gotten, is that he's not coming back this year, because there's no way he would have been as effective. Number one. Number two, now Woody does not have to go to the portal next year to try and hopefully find a veteran point guard to run his offense that he would have to introduce to. Now, not only does he have that guy, he's got a veteran that can score, that can facilitate, and that can defend. Do you know the value what that is going to carry next year? Oh, he would have been valuable on the market, open market. But Woody doesn't have to worry about that. That is such a gigantic. I promise you, Woody went home, kicked his feet up, and lit a cigar when that announcement came. But he still has to hit the portal and hit it strong, because they need scoring from the wing. They need shooters. And that's what they have to focus on. They're going to have another big as well. But shooting, they've got guards coming in. Ja'Kai Newton, Ja'Kai Newton's not a guard, but Gabe Cupps. They need guys that can shoot right now. And the portal will give them that opportunity to do that. Indiana could be just as good next year, or if not better, than they are right now. Not to get ahead of ourselves, but we just thinking about that. But this year's going to be fun. The Big Ten tournament is going to be fun. Anyone going to the Big Ten tournament, anyone going to the NCAA tournament, let us know. We're going to be doing the show from all of those places, of course. Ginger Stash says Purdue was low because they ranked these college guys really. I'm jumping in on the comments and probably shouldn't do that, because they're usually talking about something. I don't know what they're talking about. But big thanks to everybody for jumping on there today. We appreciate you. Of course, big thanks to Dustin Dopirak as always, Dustin Schutte, and the man, Don Fischer. Tomorrow, we're back to do it again. On Tuesdays, that means that we are joined by the great Mike DeCourcy from Big Ten and the Sporting News. And Mike, of course, each Sunday night with the Big Show on the Big Ten Network, Big Ten and Beyond. Watched that last night. They got you want to be prepared for the Big Ten tournament. Make sure you're on tomorrow with us with Mike DeCourcy, because we will lay it all out in addition to his bracketology and where he thinks IU could possibly fall, rise, what the best scenario for them will be. Also, Chronic Hoosier joins us tomorrow as well. That's going to wrap it up for today. Cannot thank you guys enough. Without you, we have no reason to be here. Thanks for Joe, to the producer, for filling in. We'll be back tomorrow to do it all again. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.